Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our read-through of Mecha Ace. We continue with Episode 3, so let's dive right in. Episode 3, Enter the Blue Masque, A Clash of Aces. Orbit over Vedria Prime, Vedria System. You take a long, peaceful moment to savor the airless quiet of space as your Manningham breaks free from Vedria's atmosphere, flying close to the autopiloted prototype machine which you and your Lance fought so hard to secure. Vedrian orbit looks far less peaceful than it sounds, though it lacks the thunderous rattle of autocannon and mechanical whines of burning veneers, which so dominate the audioscape of surface combat. The raging battle in orbit is greater magnitude than the skirmish you just left behind. Here, the half-kilometer-long warships of the Caliburn's battle group push back against the attacking Imperial force, pouring fire at each other at close range. In the distance, you see the lead elements of the enemy force begin to retreat from the battle as the Caliburn and her consorts salvo wave after wave of megaton-range warheads at the Imperials. Before long, the entire Imperial force is beginning its slow, lumbering withdrawal. It seems that the battle in orbit is slowly, irrevocably being won. How do you feel about that? Let's see. We are doing the heroic run, so we are going to be a little bit sad. We don't want to be out fighting. We just want to end this war quick. Your heart aches with sadness as you see the debris of battle drift past your combat armature. Dozens of pilots died horribly, both in orbit and on the surface of Vedria today, killed in the most terrifying ways as their machines ruptured around them, or as their variable inertia fields collapsed around them, crushing their fragile bodies with thousands of gravities of pressure. Even so, you know that the loss of life suffered by your fellow pilots is minuscule compared to the deaths on board the battered warships of both fleets, not to mention the civilians dead, who have been left below on the planet's surface. You tell yourself that Codex victory here will help end the war and the killing more quickly. It is the only thing that keeps the taste of this so-called victory from turning to ashes in your mouth. Pardon my little bit of stuttering tonight, by the way. It's 2 in the morning here, so we're going to see if reading late at night helps anything. The sharp beeping of the proximity alarm pulls you out of your thoughts and back onto the battle. Your tactical display shows 2 contacts with hostile markings heading straight for you and the prototype you are escorting. A closer look reveals them to be nothing more than a pair of Mark M401s, carrying only the most basic equipment. What's more, they're flying straight and slow, the mark of a new and undertrained pilot. You had been like them once, thrown into the battle in the first frantic weeks of the war with only a few dozen hours of training. The Imperials had decimated your fellow Codex pilots then, but those who survived had gone on to become more battle-hardened veterans. That was years ago. Now it is these luckless Imperials who find themselves outmatched by you. The enemies close in with the eagerness of untested amateurs. You know that the very lowest rung of the Imperial military is made up mostly of conscripts. You also know that even non-hardened pilots can do a great deal of damage if you do not respond immediately. As the Imperial mechas enter weapon range and prepare to attack, you make the decision to I don't know, this is a difficult decision. Are we so battle-hardy that we want to fight more? Let's see if we can't pot-shot them away. You bring your particle rifle up to the mecha's shoulders as the Imperials prepare to open fire with their autocannon. You fire first. A trail of pale blue light appears between the 2 Imperial mecha machines. For a second, your opponents do not budge, continuing to approach, their autocannons leveled in your general direction. Taking no chances, you cycle the bolt on your particle rifle and fire again. After a moment, both the Imperials scramble away, their flight paths erratic. Apparently, you had mistaken their panic for resolve. Chuckling at the incompetence of your would-be attackers, you continue on your way. A moment later, you receive a message from the Caliburn. Mithril lead. We're prepping Hangar B to receive the package. Status report? You consider your brief encounter with the enemy, then shake your head. Nothing dangerous, Captain. Good. Keep me informed. Caliburn out. You are getting close to the Caliburn now. It would only take a few more minutes to get the prototype machine to the carrier's hangar bay, but as you approach safety, you also fly closer and closer to the battle itself. At this distance, you can make out the shapes and forms of individual mech. You watch as an allied lance of Grenzers streak across the sky ahead of you and fire their particle rifles into the side of a retreating Imperial light cruiser. Needles of pale blue light pierce through the enemy warship, and it soon falls behind the retreating Imperial formation, plasma and atmosphere bleeding from its drive pods. Your eyes are pulled away from the sight by a call from the surface. Boss? Asadi's face appears on screen. I didn't want to bother you with this, but Mithril 4's insisted. We found something, boss, Mithril 4 says, her face appearing in a new window on your display. It's in a container marked top secret. It's sealed tight, and none of us have the clearance to open it. I'd wager pretty safe odds that someone considered this thing important. Whatever it is, it weighs something like 500 metric tons. We'll need 2 of us to lift it. Asadi shakes her head. I don't want to waste our time dealing with this, not when we could still be hunting for enemy stragglers. Mithril 4 purses her lips. Our fight with the Imperials did a lot of damage to the complex. The place is falling apart. We might not have a chance to retrieve it later. Ensign Asadi sighs. Your call, boss. We're not hunting down the enemy. We're leaving as many of them as alive as possible. So, the contents of that box might be critical. Get it somewhere safe immediately. Asadi jumps forward in her seat. Boss? You shake your head at Asadi's protests. No, I want this box taken to priority. From the other window, Mithril 4 nods. Got it, boss. We'll move this thing to the surface and prep it for retrieval. Mithril 4 out. Your wingman gives you a dirty look before signing off. Mithril 2 out. Ooh, she's going to turn against us. I bet. In the distance, the crippled Imperial vessels lash out furiously with its point defense guns, dappling the darkness around it with bursting shells, but the attacking machines come in for another pass, picking off gun after gun with precisely aimed shots. One by one, the defiant turrets of the wounded warship fall silent. As the cruiser's last guns fall silent, Caliburn and her escorts fling a vast salvo of missiles at the now defenseless enemy vessel. The attacking mecha back away as each one of the warheads hits home in a self-annihilating flash of antimatter. Explosions rip across the stricken vessel's hull as bodies and fragments of metal are blown free, shimmering in the light of death and the Vedrian suns. Section by section, the ship's plating begins to fold and buckle as the ship's variable mass fields begin to fail. Each portion of the hull crumples like sheets of paper crushed by a giant invisible hand. Finally, a bright light emanates from the deepest recesses of the disintegrating vessel as it suffers a catastrophic reactor containment failure, consuming every part of it in a single violent flash of unleashed exotic matter. 500,000 metric tons of metal, ceramic, and plastic, 600 lives, snuffed out in the space of 8 seconds. Oops. What's going on here? Oh, oops, I'm pushing the wrong button. That doesn't help. Their target destroyed, the attacking mecha back away from the slowly spreading field of wreckage. One by one, they return to their formation to seek out another target. At least, until one of them explodes. More out of morbid curiosity than anything else, you magnify your main display, centering in on the Allied force as they quickly assume a defensive formation. It doesn't help them. Their attacker, and there is only one, is too fast for them to catch. Lances of pale blue fire pierce the dark heavens, but the Imperial mecha among them evades all of them with a speed and grace that even your veteran skills would be hard-pressed to match. The enemy machine moves so swiftly that it barely appears as a blur of fire and metal on your display, twirling through your distant allies, mono saber shimmering in the sunlight. One by one, the codec machines are cut apart. Soon, all 6 are nothing more than burnt-out hulks or rapidly expanding clouds of debris. For a moment, you see this mysterious Imperial attacker, lit by the explosion of the last opponent. At a glance, it seems like a modified M403 Valier, a quick and versatile but aging model of the Imperial Mecha. It should have been no match for one Grenzer, let alone 6. In fact, you can see very little that would distinguish it from a normal Imperial machine, save for its striking blue and silver paint scheme. Blue and silver. You break out in a cold sweat and begin to hear yourself breathe hard as you recognize the Imperial machine's distinctive order. They are a custom paint job of the highest scoring ace in the Imperial military, Commandant Camille Hawkins, the Blue Masque. The Imperial Ace's machine turns around with the grace of a ballet dancer. With a burst of flame from its veneers, it begins moving again, towards you. You barely even have time to prepare yourself. The Imperial machine approaches with blinding speed. Your chances of evading, or otherwise outrunning the rapidly approaching Imperial Mecha are slim. A comm window blinks open in your main display. You find yourself face to face with a pale-faced man in an Imperial officer's pilot suit, perhaps in his late 20s. His features are gentle, perhaps even cherubic, despite his earnest expression. A sky blue mask, fashioned to look like a knight's visor, covers the top half of his face from the upturned nose of his mop to his mop of unruly golden hair. "Good day, pilot." His voice is a smooth, rich baritone laced with all the gentlemanly eagerness of a knight, errant from a bygone age. "I'm sure you know who I am." "What do you want?" you reply almost involuntarily. "Want?" You imagine a golden eyebrow raising in question behind the inscrutable face of that archaic mask. "I suppose I shall want the white machine you are escorting, but ultimately 'tis nothing more than a prize to be won." Hawkins' machine comes to a gentle stop, just outside your weapon's range. "For such a prize, I would request that you do me the honor of fighting for it in single combat." Well, that was unexpected. Your options flash through your mind as the Imperial Ace awaits you respond. Your tactical displays only show a few friendlies nearby, and all of them seem to be either engaged or clearing the area. It seems none of them want to be the Blue Masque's next victim. With the ships of the fleet wholly focused on matching missile broadsides with their Imperial counterparts, they won't be able to come to your aid either. It looks like you're going to have to face the famed Imperial Ace alone, unless your allies in orbit may have no reason to throw themselves in the Blue Masque's way, but if you ordered your own lance up from the surface, they'd be duty-bound to help you. Your unit should be able to split up to aid you and recover the box at the same time. Ugh. It would take them some time to reach you, but if you were able to hold off the Imperial Ace for long enough, you would outnumber your solitary opponent. Stuttering all over the place. Then again, Hawkins' insistence on challenge you to single combat might mean that he won't attack you if you were to refuse the challenge. It's a risky choice, but if it means avoiding a fight with the Imperial Ace, it might be worth a try. Lastly, you could always accept the challenge. Hawkins' Valier custom gives him advantage that you can't match, and his formidable reputation as a pilot must certainly be considered. But if you are lucky enough, or good enough to actually beat the Empire's top pilot one-on-one, the Imperial machine before you points the blade of his monosaber directly at you. "Your time is up, pilot. I have challenged you, sir. How shall you answer?" We're accepting the challenge. One-on-one, we are going to fight this like a true Mecha Ace. You need only a moment to make your decision. "I accept your challenge." Commandant Hawkins' face breaks into a broad, enthusiastic grin. "Then I salute you, pilot. You are courageous in choosing to face me. Now let's see if your lion's heart is matched by a lion's ferocity. Defend yourself." With that, the Imperial Mecha rushes forward, its monosaber ready to strike. Moving faster than you had even thought possible, Hawkins is upon you. This time, you are prepared for the enemy's blinding speed. As the enemy approaches once more, you quickly ask yourself how you want this duel to be fought. While you certainly could meet Hawkins' machine in close combat, the Imperial's swift machine gives him a definite advantage. You would either need to find a way to make up for the inferior speed of your machine, or hope that you are able to read your opponent's fighting style to counter his attacks before they even happen. Alternatively, you could choose to fight him at range, taking advantage of your opponent's lack of any sort of gun. You would need exceptional aim to hit a target as fast as Hawkins' machine from a distance, and nerves of steel to keep you firing well-aimed shots should he try and get close. Hawkins' Valier Custom continues to close on you. If you're going to make a decision, it has to be now. Where are the particle rifle, Ace? So we're gonna keep going at a distance. You send your machine flying back as fast as you can. When Hawkins charges in to strike, you are long gone. The Imperial turns and makes another pass, with a horse-born, tawny knight of old Earth. Once more, you retreat out of the way. Again, the Imperial Ace tries to charge you, faster this time. Again, you keep your distance. After his third pass, the Imperial Ace turns to face you as if you were to charge again. Only this time, the Imperial holds his position. "Tell me, pilot," he says, through the still open comm channel, his eyes intent behind his mask, "why do you fight?" The question takes you by surprise. You think back to that day, an eternity ago, when you signed up to fight against old Earth. You had a cause then, a burning in your soul which drove you into battle. Does it still? Does it drive you still? No, we still fight to protect our friends. I believe that's what we said back in part 1, so we fight for the same reason now. The Imperial Ace gives you a look of undisguised pity. "I was once like you, pilot. I once thought that the only purpose of armed struggle was to protect those who could not protect themselves. The world has taught me otherwise. No human being is defenseless. Every human being fights, be it with weapons, his words, or his mind. To fight for others is an insult to them, is to deny them their full potential as people." Hawkins rushes for you again, his blade poised to strike. Don't fight for your loved ones. Don't fight for your home world. Fight for yourself. No. You examine your options as the Imperial Mecha approaches with blinding speed. You could open fire on it now, but that would give Hawkins a chance to get close enough to use his Valier's deadly monosaber. Alternatively, you could retreat from the Imperial's attacks, buying time to await a better opportunity. It also occurs to you that you could use Hawkins' verbosity against him. If your opponent is too busy monologuing to put all of his focus into the fight, it'd be a lot easier to fend off his attacks. Of course, if you felt the need to change tactics in close and melee combat, you seriously doubt the Imperial Ace would stop you. I kind of want Hawkins to keep monologuing, but I feel like he'll keep monologuing anyway, so we should just open fire. You bring up your particle rifle and aim carefully on the onrushing Imperial machine, waiting for the perfect moment to squeeze the trigger. Your shot streaks out, nearly as fast as light itself, and misses. Somehow, the Imperial has managed to dodge your shot. It should have been impossible. No human being is quick enough to evade a shot from the particle rifle. Quickly, you cycle the bolt and fire again. This time, the Imperial Ace dances out of the way a split second before you even squeeze the trigger. That's when you're realizing it. Hawkins isn't dodging your fire. He's dodging whenever the machine aims at him and prepares to fire. You cycle the bolt again. This time, you have a plan. You aim at the Imperial as if to fire and pretend to squeeze the trigger. As expected, Hawkins' machine slides out of the way, but this time you are ready. You quickly shift your aim and fire again. This time, the shot hits Hawkins' machine, clipping one arm. The hand of the Valier custom sword flies off into the endless expanse of space, monosaber still clutched in its frozen fingers. The Imperial Ace pulls out of his charge and falls back out of range. After a moment, the Imperial machine draws its backup weapon, a chain knife mounted on the elbow. Ready for battle again, the Imperial Ace renews his attack. Oh, I think we, oh, now I'm a little bit worried because he might recognize that we know his tell. Hmm. I think we still got to keep him at distance. I don't want to get greedy though. Ooh, this is difficult. Let's go for it one more time. Get greedy. Get greedy. As you bring your particle rifle up to fire again, a red warning sign pops up on the side display. You swear under your breath as you read it. The day's battle has used up more of your disposable heat sinks than you had thought. Once you're out of heat sinks, your weapon can't fire. You have 3 shots left. As the Valier Custom begins to advance toward you, you try to make the same feint that worked last time. Unfortunately, it seems your opponent is a fast study. Instead of simply dodging when you fire, Harkins dives from point to point in a crazed twisting pattern. Your second shot misses too. Your last shot, however, hits dead center. Yes! Pale blue light lances through the back of the Hawkins custom machine. You see a tiny burst of flame as the veneers of the Valier Custom's light side gutter and die. Hawkins seems unfazed. It barely takes a moment for the Imperial moment to compensate and continue his advance. You discard your now useless particle rifle and draw your chain knife as the Imperial Ace closes into melee range. Now I think would be a good time to get him monologuing. Well, let's try getting him monologuing. We've already hit him dead center, and he's without an arm. We should be able to kill him. You duck away from the Imperial's attack and try to distract him before he can strike again. Unfortunately, your people skills aren't really your strong suit. Wait a minute, you shout, sounding far more desperate than you meant to. I have questions for you. Oh wow, we are terrible with people skills. Hawkins replies with an amused chuckle. I'm afraid they will have to wait. Your attempt to distract me with questioning is inspired, if inept. Perhaps you will have chance to better next time you attempt to do a war with words. You will keep in mind your errors and do better. That is, if there is a next time. Before you can react, the Imperial Ace slams his machine into yours and grabs the Manningham arm. The Valier Custom's hand darts out, tearing free the exposed linkages carrying power to your melee weapon before heaving you away. Without power, the chain knife is useless. You toss it away just in time to see Hawkins' next attack. Just to face Hawkins' next attack. Oh, shit. Okay, so we should just focus. Before Hawkins can strike again, you become aware of an incessant beeping. It is only when the Valier pulls short that you realize it is coming from the other end of your comm link with the Imperial machine. The Imperial Ace pulls back and sheathes his blade. His expression is almost apologetic as he looks up at you. I'm afraid I must cut our dance short, pilot. The Imperial gives you a sad little grin. To interrupt our engagement pains me greatly. You are the first to have ever come so close to defeating me. You fascinate me, pilot. With that, the Valier Custom turns around and retreats for the fleeing shapes of the Imperial Task Force. I look forward to our next encounter, pilot. The space over Vedria is strangely calm as you watch the Imperial machine recede into the blackness of space. In the distance, you can see the cloud of debris and bodies where the fighting had been hardest, floating almost toy-like in the microgravity of orbit. Only the dark shapes of the Kodak fleet remain. You suppose that means your side won this one. With the battle over, there is nothing left to do besides return your machine to the safety of the Calibur's hangar deck. The last of your combat adrenaline leaves you as you set the Manningham gently onto the Caliburn's recovery deck. A sudden wave of exhaustion hits you as your machine is slowly lowered through the hangar elevator to the airlock. You can barely stay alert You barely stay alert as the telltale hiss of atmosphere fills the pressure chamber and the sounds of the hangar bay begin to filter through the quickly thickening atmosphere outside your machine. By the time the airlock opens, you are operating in a post-combat Fug? Fugue? I've never seen that word before. Barely even noticing or recognizing the secured bulkhead of the white prototype Mecha as you pass it into the hangar bay and head for your own machine's berth. Your eyelids heavy and your breathing coming heavily, you set down your machine in the maintenance dock. Your mind goes through the checkdown. I'm starting to confuse words here. Your mind goes through the shutdown check slowly, as if it were swimming in mud. Finally, the last of your displays shuts down, leaving your cockpit lit only by the small emergency lights on your suit. With a high-pitched hiss, the machine's cockpit slides open. The sounds and lights of the Caliburn's hangar deck assault your senses. You take a deep breath and pull yourself out of your machine. You have reached a checkpoint. Should you wish to, you may save your progress in the story here. Oh. Oops. I guess this is just a... Yes, I would like to save. Progress saved. Interlude. Alright, well, I think that's pretty good for part right now. Later.